This is the Discuss Metal podcast with Travis Turner of the Satire. Hosted by Dan Terry, presented by discussmetal.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Discuss Metal podcast. I am your host, Daniel Terry, and with me tonight is Travis Turner of the Satire, formerly of As the Story Grows podcast. How you doing tonight, man?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm doing good. No, it's my pleasure. I'm glad that we worked this out as quick as we did. I think I was texting you yesterday, and we're like, yeah, let's just do it. So
you're hitting me at a good time. Apparently, I, along with the rest of the planet, had an open evening. I'm not going anywhere.
Man, how'd you pull that off?
Let's not.
Well, when I was texting you, I was in the parking lot of an IHOP. Picking up Mother's Day breakfast, and yeah, that was actually really weird. My card ended up getting declined because I guess I'm so poor that every time I because I decided to order out that one day, the bank was like, "That's suspicious," and they shut my card down. So I had to call, and it was pretty funny. But
that's funny. The commercials are always like, Mr. Terry, did you buy a porcelain mule statue in Indonesia 5 minutes ago? And you're like, no, that would be ridiculous. Yours was like, are you at IHOP? Yes, I'm at IHOP.
I think it might have just been through their website. Maybe everything automates through their website, which is probably in California or something.
Maybe.
So yeah, I'm not sure what the deal was with that, but that is not what we're here to talk about tonight. I'm kind of wanting to pick your brain about the Satire because I'm going to be honest. I don't know a whole lot about the Satire, and
I was going to ask you about the Satire.
Oh well, crap! This is the wrong show for that. Because
all right, well, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Good night, everybody. No, one of the things, obviously I know that, it's a Brian Gray band, which I was talking to Clank the other night, and he described Brian Gray as the Kevin Bacon of music.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
So I guess just to start off, kind of break the ice a little bit, how did you get in touch with Brian Gray and the Satire guys and end up with your current, I'm assuming still current gig with the Satire and what you guys are up to?
Okay. When I was the host of As the Story Grows, I was trying to chase Brian down to be a guest. And if memory serves, it was via Facebook Messenger. I just kept thumping on him, out of the blue. I would just be like, dude, you should come on my show. And he'd be like, I will, as soon as I'm done with this thing, or something like that. And he would just troll me along like some chick that didn't want to come on a date or something. You know what I mean? And it became a joke. We would get into some long discussions, or he'd be like, he would send me a message about my most current show or something, and he'd be like, that was pretty cool when you asked him about blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, thanks, man, I appreciate it. You should come on my show. And then he would just ghost me for 2 days. And I'm like, he's such a jerk. And then out of the blue one day, I think he just said, Jim from The Blamed was kind of the Satire drummer unofficially, because I think just out of convenience, when Jim was involved with The Blamed, it was just easy to say, yo, dude, can you play some Satire stuff? I think that might not be accurate. I don't know. But I think Jim kind of just wanted to stick with punk rock. He wasn't really feeling all the math, and the Satire requires some homework. And Brian gave me the impression that he was like, Jim can do it, but I don't think he wants to. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I kind of said yes, because I assumed that we're all in our 40s and no one has any money. He was just going to correspond with me. I have a studio in my basement with some tracking, and I know how to do all that Dropbox stuff. And I thought he just meant he was going to send me stuff and I would record and ship it back. Dude flew me to Chicago to record. I was like, cool, that's really neat. I can honestly say no one's ever flown me out there, flown me around to do that before. So I recorded, I think it's about a year and a half ago or something. I flew out to Chicago to record. I tried to cram an entire full length into a weekend. I didn't get it done. I did pretty good, but I had a couple songs that I kind of just played mediocre. So he was like, we're going to circle back around and I'll fly you back out here someday and we'll finish them. And we never got around to doing that again. So now he's like, you know what? Why don't you just finish them in your studio? And I'll make them sound I'll make them sound like what I recorded the best I can. I'm like, okay. So I just got my studio up and running literally weeks ago with Brian's help. And we are aiming to officially finish the drum tracking probably over the next couple months.
That's exciting. So that means that there's a full length on the way.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Most certainly.
Yeah, because all I've heard is that like 3-song demo that came out a million years ago, and are we looking at kind of, because I haven't really seen a lot of clips or anything. I mean, it's funny how low key the band is as far as like researching and finding out information. But I mean, if it's before a full length, so what information is there? If there isn't any,
right.
Are we looking at like kind of the same sort of sound, or are we going in a different direction, or are we still like? Because I mean, the demo was. It was like melting my face as far as intensity. I mean, are we looking at kind of the same sort of sound here, or is it kind of or has anything else been added to it?
The best way I can answer that would be that actually all 3 songs on that demo are going to be on the full length, except it's going to be updated with all the new musicians and everything. The only common thread between that and this is Brian, actually. But the main difference that I think kind of Satire, in my opinion, found like low gear when they brought Jesse Hawley on as the vocalist, the guy who's singing for him. That dude's voice, man, he added some sort of old school hardcore tough guy element to the vocals that I think it didn't quite. Before, it had a little bit more of a screechy craziness kind of a vocal style to it. And Jesse really gets that gurgly, throaty, hardcore thing into it, which I think just put balls into it that it didn't have. Nothing personal to the old recording. I'm learning from the old recording, so it's not like they're not adequate. But something about, I mean, you can you can pick a band that we all love. It's all pretty much just metalcore riffs and decent drums. You can change the vocalist around and completely alter the band. I think Jesse was probably the missing element, in my opinion. Not to take from anybody else in the band, but I'm excited for everybody to hear him. And we have a split with The Blame with 2 songs out. So that'll give you an idea as to what Jesse sounds like. Dude will hurt you. He's a really great vocalist, I think.
Yeah, I know Jesse from Facebook. That's how I know everybody these days is all Facebook. And but no, that's exciting because it's one of those things where, for me, whenever it's a band I haven't really heard of or had a lot of experience with starting out, I mean, this day and age, somebody's like, "Hey, check out this band," and I'm like, "Okay,"
I'm so jaded. I always tell my friends, like, what's a metal band supposed to do to impress me anymore?
Dude, you have
like light yourself on fire. I'd be like, I saw Dillinger do that 10 years ago. I don't know, whatever. Like, I don't know.
No, I feel that. I feel like I'm getting old. Because I mean, even on discography discussion, we've ventured away from metal a few times, and nobody's given us too much flack for it. But it's definitely one of those so. And that's why I thought it was interesting. Whenever I heard the band and knew that you were playing with them, that you had kind of also you and I had conversations about you're like, and I'm getting kind of getting burned out with heavy music and and all of that stuff, and then I catch wind that you're playing drums for a pretty heavy extreme band,
Yeah.
Was that just kind of a challenge yourself kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, I knew where the satire was coming from. Being a faith-based band, I knew that the one thing I don't want to do is get involved in any kind of tough guy metal. I'm just not into the whole I'm not into the posturing and the scene and the every scene comes with a weird starter kit, and I've never been that guy. I was the guy that was in a tech metal band and wore flip flops to the show, and you know what I mean. I don't want to be. It's not that I don't want to be that. I'm trying to get away from it. I'm just not. I'm a dad shorts guy. I don't care. I don't care about that kind of stuff. So that's kind of important to me that I'm not involved in something that I don't really have my heart in. So setting all that aside, I kind of don't care what he's singing about as long as it's not whatever. I don't care what he's singing about as long as it's not stupidly over the top, just meathead jock metal. You know what I mean? But the math of it was interesting to me because I got to talking to Brian about the Blame. I was never really a Blame fan. I was never really a Tooth and Nail fan, to be straight with you. I never really liked that kind of stuff, and I wasn't a huge Blame fan, so I was kind of what does your other band sound like? And he sent me this stuff, and I was like, oh, wow. I'm that's neat. I would have to be like running numbers the whole time. And I wanted the challenge of making something sound like that again at my age. I wanted to prove it to myself to see if I could pull it off, because I introduced Brian to the Armed and bands like that. And he was like, I'm kind of looking for that kind of sound. And I was like, oh, are you? Okay, cool. That sounds like fun. So yeah, I kind of got a little itchy to do something heavy again, but not the commitment of climbing in a van and doing it. Man, I don't have it in me. So the fact that they're in Chicago kind of guarantees me that, like, if we really start booking up and getting busy, I'm going to play 3 times a year, maybe. So right. I can do that. I'll do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, none of it seems to pay the bills.
It's not even money. It's just about, I want to be home. I'm a homebody, man. I'm home anyway.
Well, and that's exciting for me, knowing that there's a new Satire record coming out, and that it's gonna be pretty melt my face. Which there haven't been a lot of bands that play that style now. I remember a lot of bands. I'm not saying it like it's dated or anything, or that it's like a retro throwback or anything like that. But I mean, I can't remember bands having that sort of mathy sound since like the very early 2000s.
That's what attracted me to it. The way Jesse sings without ripping him off, it reminds me of Coalesce, one of my favorite bands ever. And as far as the throwback sound and everything, yeah, dude, I'm 44. Brian's older than me. Sid's older than Brian. I mean, you're gonna get what we've been seasoned with for so long. We're not gonna come up with any new ideas, Come on. We're not that smart. We're a bunch of punker metal guys that just still like playing it and everything. I don't think we're gonna revolutionize anything. I think it's gonna be, oh yeah, these guys kind of remind me of Coalesce when they were half decent. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with working with Brian Gray, I mean, just based on your history as a music fan, I know you weren't like super into the Blame, but I'm sure there were, because here's the thing, Brian Gray's been in so many bands that it's almost hard to throw a rock at a bunch of band names and hit one that he wasn't in.
Yeah,
at least in some capacity.
He was playing in 4 bands and working there the entire time for like forever. He's Kevin Bacon. Clank got it right, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait till that post. I actually, whenever he said that, I sent Brian a message immediately, and I was like, well, apparently you're Kevin Bacon now. So
that's funny.
Yeah. But as far as working with him, I've never encountered somebody with that much drive, as far as like, especially, and this is going to sound derogatory, it's not, but like at his age, at your age, I mean, I'm hitting 30. Oh my God, what year is it? So I'm hitting like 34, and I'm already, yeah, oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that's old for me, dude. Like most of my hair is gray. Like it's, I apologize. This is my quarantine hair. So the fro is back.
Most of mine is falling out.
I'll never be bald, but
I respect where it's coming from. I don't take it as an insult. You're right. It's really turned into a let's be as organized and serious of a weekend warrior thing as we can, because on Monday I gotta go pay bills and do dad stuff and husband stuff and cut my grass, and I just built a fire pit with my wife. Like I'd rather hang out at my fire pit and burn something and drink a beer on my back patio than be in some stupid club on a Saturday trying to sell you a 7-inch or something. I just don't care. I'm just not into it anymore.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Worry about it,
Well, burnout's really real, and that, and yeah, I mean, you're describing basically my whole previous weekend was barbecue. Let's see, barbecue. I attempted to plant a garden for my wife as a Mother's Day gift. I got most of it done, but I was like digging like tree roots out of the ground, which was just not, wasn't how I expected to spend my Sunday, but I did. I broke a couple of shovels. It was awesome. But
I literally ripped bushes out on Mother's Day for my wife as well. I was chopping roots with an axe and cursing under my breath because stupid bush. Where can this other root possibly be? I've already cut 6 of them. Yeah, I do the same thing, dude. That's funny.
It goes 6 feet that way. Yeah, like that's just
under the house. How do they even get under there? It's a little push. I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm gonna kind of rewind the clock a little bit. on this stuff, and I realize that maybe some of the things I'm going to ask you and there are things that I probably already know the answer to, but and a lot of this stuff can be found on podcasts. I mean, there's years of As the Story Grows of you talking about this stuff and all of that, but this is the newest rehash of all that.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't been on the show since I left that show, my goodbye episode. So
yeah.
I haven't really had much to update since then. But yeah, we'll reiterate all the stuff. I don't care.
Well, I mean, we talked about the Satire. That was the biggest update.
That's new, I guess. Yeah.
Because I feel like when you did your last episode of As the Story Grows, were you playing in a cover band?
Oh yeah. I was. Yeah, just I had a local thing going where, again, I need money. So
I like money. You got some money?
It's one of my favorite things to purchase with. So, there was a local band around here that needed me to fill in for their full-time drummer who was like going through a divorce and had a rough schedule situation where he had 2 kids and was now getting divorced and marrying a woman who had 4. So every other weekend, this dude had 6 kids. So when do cover bands work? Weekends. So just about every other weekend, he wasn't available. So I was like, I'll take the work. And it was awesome. It was so much fun sitting and playing like Stevie Wonder stuff and Gnarls Barkley. And I liked the dichotomy of being like, yeah, I'm working on Satire songs and then I'm going to fly home and play Justin Timberlake at a wedding. You know what I mean? I like that challenge too. I like having a lot of hats.
How many Chuck Berry songs, or not Chuck Berry? How many Buck Cherry songs did you have to play?
I never played a Buck Cherry song, but I will admit that I played. I've done Hootie and the Blowfish. I've done both of the Sublime songs that everyone knows. I've played Plush from Stone Temple Pilots in 3 different bands in my life.
But that's cool.
If I never hear that song again, I'd be fine with it. Yeah. Just talk about burnout. I can't. I don't have to hear that again. But yeah, I did the cover thing around my house too. Just kind of a fill-in guy. I mean, I'll sit in with your band and get some free beer and get $80. Sure.
I was going to say cover bands make money. I mean, 100%.
I've been playing original metal my whole life. I'm not used to people walking up and handing me cash at the end of a show. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to rewind pretty far back, and this is actually a question that your replacement asks people a lot on As the Story Grows, and I've kind of stolen it from him.
Okay.
So sorry, Brian. But as far as, and again, I already know this, I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it just basically for the listeners is, what made you go from being a person that, appreciates music? Cause like, that's what I am essentially is a guy that appreciates music officially. What was it for you that inspired you to go from being a guy that liked music to being a guy that wanted to actually make it?
I wish I had as funny and concise of an answer as my cousin, because I know when he was on your show, he just said Striper, and that made me laugh. That was really funny.
I had no idea that you even listened to my show, so that's awesome.
yeah, here and there. Not all of them. I definitely can't keep up with everybody.
Oh, it's a cherry pick show for sure. Yeah.
That's what podcasts are supposed to be, I think. What made me? I guess it's a huge question, but I guess there was something about, I guess it was working with my dad when I was a kid. We didn't have really an opportunity to get me a babysitter. I was like 11 or 12 or something like that. I was just a little bit too young to be left home alone. I probably light something on fire or hurt the dog or something dumb. So I had to go to work with my dad, who did construction work, and he was a little bit older than the other dads. Like right now, if I'm 44 years old, anybody else who's around my age, their dad was listening to like Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and the Beatles in that era. You know what I mean? Like the trippy Beatles. You know what I mean? My dad was a little bit older. He was 42 when he had me, so he was listening to like doo-wop. I came up on like the Four Tops and stuff, and that's what was jamming in my house. Or every time I went down to the barn or the garage, I should say, my dad was listening to that. So I listened to stuff that had swing in it. Rock music is a little bit more linear, a little bit more concise. I kind of didn't circle back to classic rock till I was in my mid-20s, but I guess long story short, to answer your question, it was my dad. The friggin' guy didn't have a radio on. And I just started, when I went to work with him, it was oldies all day. oldies the entire work day, the whole trip home. We'd get home, and by the time I got home, I had busted the. I brought one of these to show you. Remember these construction pencils?
I have one upstairs. My wife literally picked one up and says, "Is this yours?" Like literally, like yesterday.
The rectangular construction pencils that dudes use on the job, and then they sharpen with a razor blade. I would on the dashboard with these things, and my dad was getting totally frustrated every time he went to sharpen it. The lead inside was all busted.
Yeah,
because I broke them all.
Oh no!
And he was like, you know, I guess I was keeping up with it one day on the dashboard or on my leg or whatever, and he was like, "You're getting pretty good at that. We have to buy you a drum set." And that was I never thought of that moment. I guess I was probably about 12. Something hit me, and I was just like, I think I want to play the drums. I want to try that. And I have been doing it for 32 years.
And so it was definitely drums. I mean, what attracted you to drums? Because, I mean, you know, you're being exposed to all this music. Because like for me, it was singing is what, you know, even though, you know, I'm not like a la singer by any means, but, for me, it was always the energy of the voice. You know, for my co-host Joe, it was the guitar. I know you met Joe as a drummer, but Joe is primarily a guitar player.
I didn't know that.
And he's actually incredible. Like shred, all that. You listen to that, Joe. That one's for you, buddy. It was always. I don't know if I've ever met too many people that were like, oh, it's the bass. The bass is my instrument.
You're right. They're few and far between.
Yeah, like maybe like a Joshua Toomey or somebody like that. You know, maybe it was like bass is my inspiration. But so what was it about drums? I guess whenever you had all those other kind of elements to draw from, or was it just something that came to you just like naturally?
I don't know. I don't know that I ever had it presented to me as a choice of a bunch of other instruments. I did take piano lessons when I was a kid for 3 years because your mom makes you take piano lessons. And I hated it the entire time. And I'll be damned, she was right. I can hold down a chord or two, but I'm no piano player. I played the saxophone for a year. I thought the dude in Bruce Springsteen's band looked badass when he would take his saxophone off and swing it around to his back.
Oh, yeah.
And then he would lower he days and he would dance, right?
That's cool.
So, well, hang on. The story gets tragic.
Okay.
He had his strapped onto him like a guitar strap where it was clipped at the top and the back and the bottom. You already know where I'm going, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I got the neck thing. So when I went to swing around the back, I almost hung my dumb ass.
Oh my God.
and like the first day in, I was like, well, this isn't going to work. And my mom was like, well, we're doing lessons for a year. I played saxophone for a year. Yeah. I don't know that I ever completed a song without making it sound like I was murdering a cat.
Well, that's just the saxophone, though, right?
If you do it wrong, yeah, it's most wind instruments are brutally honest. If you're not doing it right, it'll tell you. You know.
Oh, saxophone. To me, that's the worst instrument. But continue.
I love it. I just don't let me play it. Let somebody who knows, leave it in the hands of the professionals. I guess my mom took me to get guitar lessons. I started getting into rock and whatever. And I think she went to take me for guitar lessons at a local music shop. And the dude said my hands were too small. Now we all know you can go on YouTube and look at like a 5-year-old kid that knows how to like shred now.
Yeah.
Hands are smaller than mine. So that guy just didn't know what he was talking about. Bring him back in a year. Like in a year, I'm going to come back with like Slenderman fingers, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, whatever. So within that year, is when the drum thing happened, and I just never looked back. And to this day, I don't even know what a chord on a guitar is. I don't know how to play the guitar at all. I wouldn't even. I don't even need another instrument. I have too much fun on the drums. So I don't know. To answer your question, it was presented to me as an option. I jumped on it. Haven't had a desire to leave.
So, obviously, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is, kind of the older, like classic stuff, like, even the doo-wop stuff, which as an older person, I'm starting to actually appreciate more. I've gone on a weird musical journey since I started a metal podcast. Because like, I love metal, but now it kind of feels like work, a little bit. So, what was it that got you into heavier music as far as, because, and I asked Steven this as well, because I was like, weren't you scared? at some point. You're going from relatively normal songs that are being sung by normal people to these. And again, his answer was Striper, which is not totally satisfactory. But what was it that got you into heavier music, especially considering the background where you had kind of started off listening to Christian music as far as the heavier stuff goes?
My friend Josh Kale, who played, he actually played bass on that first Unteachers album that I know you talk about a lot. He's been like one of my closest friends since we were in youth group together when we were kids, and we both came up in Christian homes, and you were only allowed to listen to Christian music. You can't, anything else is
sure, same, yeah,
plagued with demons or whatever, and he introduced me to him, and I had a not a falling out. That's not the right term. Him and I, when you're a kid, you go where your parents go. You just hang out with your parents. I didn't have a circle of friends. I had friends who were where their parents were.
You have no control over where you go. Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't think of a way to say it. So him and I had we must have left the church, or he left the church, or whatever, and we disconnected for a while, maybe like a year. Got back together on the phone and was like, so I think I said this before on the show. What are you into? You still trading baseball cards? No, not really. I got into music. Oh, really? Me too. What are you listening to? And he was like, well, I kind of went down this path. He introduced me to Believer. The first super heavy thing that I ever heard was Believer's Extraction from Mortality. That came in with classical strings, and it sounded like a combination of things that I'd heard before, because I got exposed to some classical and some jazz, weirdly enough, whatever was laying around the house, like Chick Corea, weird stuff. And I don't know, man, that opening riff started, and it hit me at the same time that MTV hit me, and I came up through the glam hair metal phase where like you flip on the TV and you're looking at the biggest, baddest drum sets you've ever seen. And
oh my God, so excessive. Yeah.
Bass drums in the air and stupid stuff like that. And I understood how to play a drum set. Like I physically see people do it because I'm watching videos. I'm also watching people throw them in swimming pools and light them on fire and everything. So, I mean, like it's all the excess and everything, but like I started listening to that Believer record, cassette, I should say. And I just understood it. I understood what a cymbal grab was. Okay, I get this now. And off I went. And there was something about the bombasticness of the drums and how fast they were and everything. I just wanted to get good at that.
Yeah.
And I kind of jumped right over punk, and I got right into both feet with metal and Believer, Tourniquet, Deliverance. Wasn't a huge Mortification guy, but Scrolls is awesome. That stuff. Crucified, hats off to Jim. I've been listening to Jim since I was a kid.
Same.
Yeah, been listening to all that stuff. And then kind of back ended into Metallica, Megadeth, and that's what all these guys are listening to.
Right.
But he says Living Sacrifice sounds like Slayer. I guess I should start listening to Slayer,
Especially Deliverance. They were like Metallica 2.0,
Yeah, they were. I mean, if you go back and listen to my interview with Jimmy, it was like, that's what everybody was saying about Deliverance. They're like, you're ripping off Metallica. Good. They're a great band. He's like, that's a great I to rip off. I kind of caught up to the other not Christian stuff later. And then I was insatiable. I didn't want to do anything other than listen to music when I wasn't playing drums, or play the drums when I wasn't listening to music.
It's so funny to hear. And I was like hearing that story because it very much mirrors what I went through growing up. And I always have to say, okay, yeah, the interview's not about me, but I relate so much, and it's so funny. Sure. A lot of those records. It's funny though, because you were hearing those when they were relevant. I didn't hear those records until probably like the 2000s,
right?
Or early 2000s. So it was always kind of a history lesson for me. And so you played. So did you play in bands as a drummer prior to Crotch Alathian? Because that's the first thing I remember you being on. But there had to have been other stuff.
One band. I was jamming with some friends. Kind of had like a Queensryche Dream Theater thing going, high vocals and everything. Yeah.
You loved it at the time. Come on.
At the time, I loved it. Sure. At the time, I loved Dream Theater before I decided it was silly. I can't listen to it anymore. But the first band that actually did something, like got out and started playing, was this insane, interesting. If I was forced to tell somebody what it sounded like, it was like progressive indie. It was really, really mathy, really interesting, and all over the place, with songs about flying saucers and aliens and like tongue-in-cheek, funny, backhanded political stuff. The music was really screamo-y, but not like, again, talking to somebody that got into stuff in 2002, not that screamo. I'm talking like...
Oh, I'm aware. Yeah.
I know. I'm talking to the other people.
Oh, okay. You're talking...
like I said, you and
you're talking past me. Yeah, okay.
I'm talking over you.
All right.
But it was a band called My Brother the Woodmaker.
Okay.
Dumbest name ever. It was a stupid, funny story behind it.
Whatever, man. That's the most indie name I've ever heard in my life.
Thank you.
Come on. Did you come up with it?
No.
Oh, okay.
My you want to hear that story? That's really dumb.
I want to hear it. I got nothing but time, dude. I'm on lockdown.
My friend Tom, to this day, still buddies with him. He's in the thread that just dinged me. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Right? Tom and me and a couple other dudes were in this band, and we were trying to come up with a name. And he said, I think we should call the band My Brother the Woodmaker. And I was like, not until you explain why. That doesn't make any sense. So we had this mutual friend named Dave Groyce. Everybody just called him Groyce. Groyce's little brother, Tom and Groyce, were at their house one night watching Seinfeld or something. I don't know what they were doing. And Groyce's little brother came in the room and said, Dave, I want to build something, but how do you make wood? And he went, what? the kid didn't understand that you had to take bigger wood and cut it down to something. He thought you made
wood.
So they started, hey, here comes My Brother the Woodmaker. So
that's awesome.
So dumb.
Side note to that story too. I just had my 6-year-old help me build a computer a couple weeks ago, and because it was literally to try to prevent that mindset, because she's like, computer. She's like, you buy a computer at the store, and I was like, no. You can buy, you can put together elements. This entire world that we live in is created by human beings. Somebody had to make all this stuff. Like, sure, somebody makes it and you could buy it at the store, but right. So that's hilarious, because that was something that was on my mind a couple weeks ago, and I was like, no, I want my kids to know that, like, these houses weren't just like there and we just moved into them.
Yeah. I've had that conversation with them before, where I'm like, I don't mean to sound like an old man, but I don't know how to relate with you when you've literally never not had texting.
Right.
You've literally never not had the internet in your pocket. Like, I remember pulling over and using a phone card to call and say you're going to be late for a gig because you can't understand the map you're reading. Remember paper maps? I remember those days.
MapQuest, dude. That's how we got to your house. It's MapQuest.
Exactly. Yeah. If you don't print out the MapQuest directions, you're screwed. Or you got to pull over and use a phone card and dial like a 17-digit number. It costs like $1,000 a minute. I remember. So I'm not going down a path of like, this generation is so spoiled. This generation has an amazing amount of privileges in their pocket. I wish they wouldn't squander them so much on dumb stuff. But I'm a sucker for clickbait and stupid stuff too. But
absolutely.
But they just don't. They don't know the contrast. They've never not had it. Just like the reason I'm not upset about it is because I bet my dad said the same stuff about me.
Yeah, and we'd be the same way if we had that stuff.
Exactly. You kids don't know how. He grew up in a house in Maine that only one part of the house had electric. The other part of the house was heated with a wood stove. You know what I mean? So like he was still fascinated by the coffee maker.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we as kids are sitting there in a temperature-controlled environment like, it's too cold in here. Yeah,
it's slightly humid in here. Please do something about it. Exactly.
Yeah. Go adjust a knob with 2 fingers.
Right.
Yeah.
Trying to do it from my phone, and it disconnected somehow. This is ridiculous. I have to get up and use my fingers?
Yeah, so dumb.
I know. Third world country?
Right. Well, and, speaking of that, like, so you had played, you played in a band, prior to Lathian. Obviously, Lathian was my, introduction to actually, it was kind of my introduction to tech metal, because like you were describing before. So like what you were describing before was, and I know we've talked about this. We talked on that death episode we did on discography discussion 1,000 years ago. But, we, like I was listening to all that stuff. I was getting into extreme music, again, Christian music, because that's what was okay. And, so I hear it's funny. It parallels how you were like, yeah, I got into all these Christian bands, and then I got into the bands that they were into. So when I heard, it was Crutch then, Hope Prevails, and then, maybe 6 months later, I'm like, oh, okay, there's this band called Death, and there's this record called Human, and so I listened to that, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this is where these guys came up with that, because before that, I thought you guys were just like in like the musical geniuses, like before that, like I was like, oh my god, I've never heard music like this before or whatever, and then I went out and I found music like it,
You're right. Yeah, we were just ripping off Death, really. Yeah, we ripped Death off so much we RIP'd Chuck Schuldiner in our album. So, yeah, we were really into them.
Well, how'd you meet up with those guys? I don't think we ever covered that in detail. And I like the purpose of a lot of this discussed metal stuff is to be semi like archival, in the sense of just having, like documentation of this is how this started. This is how this went. And I'm sure it's something you're tired of me talking to you about, because I mean, the Crutch Alathian thing is like a skeleton of a horse in my backyard, at this point.
No, dude, I'm not even on social media, so I'm not burdened out on these conversations anymore.
There you go.
Nobody talks to me. How did I meet him? It was Steven. It was my cousin in Tantrum of the Muse. He knew that Crutch, this band from Messiah College out in Grantham, Pennsylvania, needed a drummer, and he was like, I think you'd be a good fit. So I remember going to their website in 99 when it was like https angelfire.com / blah, 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 blah. Like you typed it in wrong like 6 times. And so then I got to the site and then I let it load. I walked away and made dinner, came back, and it was 3/4 of the way up,
There you go.
I was scrolling through their pictures and I saw like eyeliner and makeup and stuff. And I was just like, nope, I don't do this. And I'm not playing the tough guy role. I'm not putting on eyeliner, dude. I can't do that. So I landed an interview with Alex over the phone. I remember talking to him in 2 parts. Once was in the evening in my apartment, and the next day from work. I remember talking to him from work. And just basically had a long talk about like, what are you into? What are you into? And apparently I cracked off a couple bands that caught his attention. You ever hear of a band called Damn the Machine?
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan. And not from just talking to you. I actually bought that in a dollar bin somewhere. Yeah, and I was like, "Damn the Machine, that's a cool band name." And then I listened to the record, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then I was like, "Oh wait a minute, this dude was in Megadeth," and it just
exactly.
Yeah, it cycled
I
from there.
I got my hooks in Alex by mentioning "Damn the Machine" in the same sentence that I mentioned Cynic, and he was like, "Okay, I'm listening," But yeah, I saw "Damn the Machine" on back when they used to put out VHS cassettes of it was almost like a mixtape. Probably a label, probably A&M pushing it out or whatever. I remember Jesus Christ Pose from Soundgarden was on there. Damn the Machine, The Mission, I think was like their hit. The Melvins were on there. It was crazy. It was a pretty wild VHS cassette.
A lot of variety there, yeah.
A lot. And every song on there was just awesome. And I just remember Damn the Machine. I remember liking that. And then I found the CD somewhere, bought it. And so I mentioned to Alex, I like them. I'm into Cynic. I like Meshuggah. And he was like, do you? I was like, yep. That was, Chaos Fear wasn't even out yet. No, yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm an idiot.
I think Chaos Fear was like 98, wasn't it? Something like that. Yeah.
What came after Chaos Fear?
Catch 33?
That sounds right. Catch wasn't out.
I did a whole discography discussion on Meshuggah, and I don't remember.
That's fine.
Little peek behind the curtains, kids.
Yeah, whoa.
Yeah.
Fourth wall.
Yep.
But we talked about the Future Breed Machine riff. That is heavily borrowed in All in Disbelief. So he was like, "You can play that kind of stuff." I was like, "Yes, I can. I grew up listening to this and that and everything." And he was like, "You know what? Let's go for it." And I was like, Go for what? How does this work? Where do we meet?" And it turns out that my cousin, not Steven, my cousin Trisha, married to a dude who had a youth group in Reading, Pennsylvania, and he actually had a building in Reading, in like downtown. With all due respect, 5 should not be pushing 10 grand worth of equipment up and down the sidewalk at night area.
Not the best insurance policy. Yeah.
No, pretty dumb. I would have robbed us. I mean, like they knew what time we were coming.
An opportunity is an opportunity, man. Yeah.
$20 is $20. And I basically said, long shot, but halfway between Grantham and my house is Reading. Hey, Joe, do you think we could do this? And he was like, "Yep," handing me the keys. And we basically had the keys to a inner city youth group building for like 4 years. And he was like, "Just don't wreck the place." I said, "Nah, we're not gonna do it." And we didn't. We were not a wild band. I hear all these stories about what guys did on the road and stuff like that. Dude, we were sitting in the van reading. We're a bunch of nerds playing chess and shit. We're a bunch of nerds.
We're trying to get our brains prepped for the technical music that we're about to display.
Legs crossed at the knees, smoking a pipe.
It's like nobody thinks we're geniuses. No, one guy does in Missouri. Yeah, it's like, when Crutch was first starting out, because Steven, your cousin, sent me the original demo that they had out. I think it's like 4 songs, and it was more of like it was less
before me.
It was before you, I believe, because it was more like. It was more metalcore, like it was not like at least like metalcore then, and I actually kind of dug it. I mean, it doesn't sound great, but like it's.
I liked it too. We played 3 of those songs until I was up to speed with the newer stuff. But
yeah,
I don't remember their calls, but yeah, I remember those.
There's a lot of the same songs I think were reworked for the Hope Prevails record, and I could be wrong about that, but it's on my other computer, and I don't feel like walking over there 3 feet to look. But it's definitely, it was interesting to me, and I had kind of always, and this might be erroneous on my part, but I always assumed that you joining the band was the kind of inspiration to go in more of a, like, for lack of a better term, like a legitimate, like, tech death type of direction.
Thank you. You're right. You're half right. It was also exactly.
That's more than my wife would give me. Yeah.
It's also exactly when Donnie joined the band, and Donnie is technically just about as proficient as Alex is. So I think the drums get more credit just because tech drums. You know what I mean? But the fact that Alex wasn't holding down the fort doing everything, and now he can hand the duties off to it, and they can trade guitars and harmonize and do the Iron Maiden stuff and that kind of thing. I think that also that opened up the opportunity for me to play the way I did, which kept them playing the way they wanted to. Yes, it was all right around the same time. But Donnie and I joined pretty much not at the same time. Donnie was in before me, but it was, I think Crutch kind of went down because their drummer previous to me, I don't even know his name. I know his nickname was Schmoop. I don't even know the dude's real name. I have no idea.
It's legit. Schmoop. Yeah.
Schmoop. Yeah. I mean, they went to college with him. Apparently they all loved him, said he was a sweetheart. He just left for whatever reason. And
no one ever saw him again. Okay.
Gone. Yeah, I killed him.
Yeah, there it is.
When Schmoop left, I guess Crutch went down without a drummer. That's when Donnie joined, and there was a long period of them writing together without a drummer. Then I joined. So like me and Donnie were both new at the same time to the person who came to see the show, but he was in the band like 6 months previous to me or something like that.
Okay.
And they had already gone down the path of like, okay, we're going to roll up our sleeves and write some legit complicated stuff. Now we just got to find a drummer to keep up with it. That's when I came in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's cool. I was half right. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I try to be a historian as good as I can, but yeah, I mean, obviously, we've talked about this. The record blew me away. I thought it was amazing. I pirated it originally from a dude named Matt, who I've reunited with. Dude, it's so cool. So like at Cornerstone one year, this is after you're out of the band, but they Lathian played like 4 times, and we went and saw him every single time. And I had been friends with Matt on AOL Instant Messenger, and we met up at Cornerstone like in real life for the first time, and he gave me a Ancestor T-shirt.
Fantastic.
Yeah, those guys are awesome. But he gave me their shirt, and it's so funny because like I'm so overweight now. But back then, I remember I was actually like really skinny, or as skinny as I was going to be at that point in my life. And he's like, okay, so it's an extra large shirt, and I was like, hey, bro, I only do larges. You know, I'm a large kind of guy. You know, and he cut, or like, I guess he had cut the shirt down a little bit, and then had his mom or somebody sew the shirt back together after he made cuts. So, like, I still have that Ancestor shirt. I can't even fit it on my like forearm, you know, at this point. But like, it's it's so funny.
He cut the shirt down.
Yeah.
What?
So okay. So you know how like you've got a shirt. There's 2 seams going down the side of the shirt, right?
Sure.
At least that shirt, and he had cut like 2 inches off of each side of the shirt, and then had like somebody sew the shirt back together after he'd cut the 2 inches off.
So he tailored it to be small.
Yeah. So I've got a custom Ancestor T-shirt that I can't wear anymore. I think last time I checked, I think my mother-in-law's making all those shirts into like a quilt for me, or something.
Great idea. We did that for my daughter with all of her volleyball shirts to send her to college.
It's so cool. Like it's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
And so I'll have my like super metal shirt. I'll be like 60 years old with my metal quilt. You know.
Metal quilt.
Yeah.
In the old folks' home.
Yep. Well, then I feel bad.
Anything happened to Mr. Terry's blanket? He gets very upset.
He gets very angry. Starts screaming, "Don't you know who I am? I was in a podcast that got downloaded 4 times." You know, like, you know, but like, yeah. I mean, that's it was always huge to me. You know what you guys did on the Hope Prevails record. You know, obviously, I've talked about it a lot, and you know, I don't know if you get tired of hearing me say it, but like. It was a very influential record. I remember being...
I get tired of saying. People who say that they're tired of getting praise are full of shit. Don't ever listen to No, I'm flattered by it. Thank you. I'm glad you liked it so much.
I remember being... well, it's so funny. So, again, the podcast isn't about me, but I have to just say it. Whenever our band, End of Destiny, went and recorded with you in your home, which you were very gracious to open your home up to a bunch of dudes you didn't know, and we were kind of well behaved, but
you guys,
yeah, we were fine. Dude, that year we were as vanilla as it gets, you know, as far as that stuff goes. We weren't drinking, we weren't smoking, we weren't doing any stuff that, you know, apparently is going to send you straight to hell. But like,
demons will get you.
I remember a distinct moment sitting there being like, yeah, dude, you know, like, cause I remember when our label owner had called us, and that dude's like a total crook. Like, he never had like a business license or anything. Like, it was a total sham, the whole thing. But,
he was sketchy.
He was the sketchy dude. I've actually been trying to find him, but that's a whole different conversation.
He was wearing a shirt where the front said Open Grave Records and the back said, "Let's go kill something." And I was like, that's actually kind of a cool shirt.
I remember that. Yeah.
I never got one.
He was a cool guy, super shady, but cool guy. But I remember to get back on track. I remember being sitting there in your basement studio and being like, oh man, I really love the Crutch record, Hope Prevails. I loved it so much. My friend burned it for me, and then you were like, wait a minute, what do you mean burned it for you? And I was like, yeah, like sent me the MP3s, and this was like on AOL Instant Messenger. So like that transaction had to have taken like 72 hours, like that year, you know. Yeah. And so, but
was I busting your chops, or was I actually acting like I was upset?
You were giving me shit, but obviously not serious. You know, okay. Like it was one of those like.
That's what bothered me, but okay, I can see me busting chops because I'm a dick. Okay.
So I love that record, obviously, and it's weird too because a few years later we went and saw, and it might have been the same year I was talking to you about when I met. I bought, we kept seeing Joel walking around at Cornerstone because they were playing all the time, like anywhere they would let him play. And we saw Joel a few times. And he was like, "Oh, thank you guys. I saw that you guys were at this last show, and you were at this last time we played, and you guys have been there every time. I think it's awesome." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And I remember I bought legit copies of Hope Prevails and Applesauce Atrocis. That's what I'm going to call it. I bought legitimate copies of both of those records. And I remember listening to them on the way home, like when we were leaving Cornerstone, because we had kind of like a 5-6 hour drive ahead of us. And so we left the fest, and I put the CDs in, and I was like, wait a minute. This is not the same. And my buddy Mike was like, "What are you talking?" My keyboard player from End of Destiny. He's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "It's not the same. It's different. Something sounds different. I can't put my finger on it." And I didn't find out until much later, like after we did the discography discussion on Alathian and all that. Joel reached out to us and was like, "Hey, here's everything that went on," And apparently, yeah. So it wasn't just a remaster. That there were different vocal takes, different guitar takes, everything. I don't know if the drums were touched or not, but to be honest, I'm not that much of a drummer, so I don't know. But,
the drums weren't touched as far as like edited or moved around. I think he remixed and did things differently for sound, but no, nothing changed with the drums.
Yeah, me being a singer, I only picked up that the vocal line sounded different. Like there was something weird about it. And so, to bring it back to you, I've been going on about me for like 40 minutes.
Okay.
But, you had been in that band. You weren't in the band the first time I saw Alathian play. And you had just recently left the band, but you did Hope Prevails, and you were all in. You were the drummer for that band. And then when the second record came out, you were... did you come in and do just like a session with the band? Because I want to think that they were like looking for a drummer or something like that at the time.
You talking about Polytrosis?
Yes.
We were winding down, and I basically, if memory serves, what year did Polytrosis come out?
I'm going to pull this right out of my backside. 2003?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
I left in the last show that I had was March of 2003. I quit Cornerstone of 2002. And when I say quit, it wasn't like goodbye, I'm driving home in a different car. It was just like, guys, I got to tap out. I'm about to have babies, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So Alex kind of gave me the whole like, dude, wait, can you please stay in the band until we find a replacement? And I was like, yeah, of course I will. From Cornerstone.
I'm not heartless. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I didn't come across like I was walking out either. As a matter of fact, I was sniveling and crying like I was a mess. But it was all hitting me like, oh my God, I have to go be an adult. I think this is over. And that was overwhelming me more than I'm leaving the band, I think. But whatever. Emotional again when it comes to kids. But I think when he basically was like, can you please stick around until we get another drummer? Yes. From Cornerstone of 2002 to my last show of March of 2003, we played 4 shows. So we really ramped down. It was during that time that Alex was kind of like, can you please still record what we've been working on? Yeah, of course. That's when I record. So I was technically out of the band or leaving the band, but was still going to put my stamp on all the work that I did. Polytrosis was supposed to be like a 4-song EP.
Yes. Yeah, Joel told me that, yeah.
Right, and that's when Century Media came knocking, and they were like, give us 38 minutes worth of music. We don't care if at the last song you let the guitars feedback for 28 minutes. We need 8 tracks, and we need 38 minutes.
Right, that was their stencil for what a full length is, yeah.
Precisely, right, because we're still playing by 2003 rules. There's no Apple Music at this time, right?
Right.
So Alex did what he could to spread not enough butter over too much bread, as they said in Lord of the Rings, and started making shit up, And he was like, that's why chapter 1 and chapter 2, or movement 1 and movement 2, and there's this huge intro and everything. Alex was just like, well, bought 6 more minutes there, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you listen to Dying Vine, I won't get too far ahead of you, but if you listen to Dying Vine, there's 3 songs on there that I had written, played out, and actually played drums for already.
I bet one of them was As the Fall Breaks.
You are correct.
Yes.
And As the Fall Breaks.
You guys ripped off the intro of Spirit Crusher. On
yes,
that one.
Did.
Yes. Yep.
Shut up, Dan. And
sorry, I'm the discography guy.
No worries. Call to Arms, As the Fall Breaks and which one's that?
Ooh, Benediction was on Polytrosis.
No, the one with the bass tapping in the beginning.
Wow, I feel like a total fake right now. I can pull it up. I can pull it up and find it. Yeah, Joe's gonna play it like as we're being like, I don't remember. What was it called? Yeah.
Those 3 songs were already kind of quote unquote mine, and I already wrote the drums for them.
Right.
So I think I shot to Alex like, hey, can we just record those? Now imagine a Polytrosis with those 3 songs on it.
It would have definitely not felt as much like filler, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. But the problem is that Alex was writing the entire EP around a concept. And those 3 songs already had lyrics. One of them is about one of Joel's best friends dying. That did not fit into what a Polytrosis' vision was. So Alex basically made the decision of like, no, sorry, you quit. You lost those 3 songs. And I was like, okay, fair enough.
That's fair.
Well, yeah, I wasn't mad about it. He's right. So those drums that you hear Joe play on Dying Vine on those 3 songs are 90% of what I was doing with some Joe Walmerisms in there, which, by the way, everything he did different with me is better.
I don't know about that, but I have to say that.
No, I mean, I'm not, I have no reason to kiss the guy's ass. I mean, as a drummer, I heard the technical things that he changed, and all of them I was like, whoa, that's really clever. I never thought of that, you know?
Yeah, he was a great drummer, for sure.
Yeah, he is. Very good.
Probably still is. I keep saying was, like he's not with us anymore, but yeah.
I think he's still around.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's that was that. Polytrosis was before Polytrosis was released, Joe had officially become the new drummer, I think. Or I wasn't available anymore, and Alex wanted something in addition to it. So he does that one. I think it's called Benediction. It's a really simple double kick in the background.
Yeah, yeah.
That's Joe. That is not me.
Okay, that's cool. Dude, same Joe. They can play the drums. That's awesome. No, yeah, that record was funny. I remember after we did the discography discussion on Alathian, Joel had reached out to us and said, like, yeah, that record was like totally a concept. It was supposed to be like an art piece. He's like, and part of the problem that we ran into is, you know, we had people come up to us at shows and they would buy the new record and not the old one. And so they would get this weird, like, this weird view of like what the band was, because like you have Hope Prevails, which is in my eyes, you know, like a classic full of great songs, you know, like awesome, fun to listen to, all of that, and then you have this concept record, which, don't get me wrong, had great stuff on it, but like you said, it sounds like 4 songs spread across 38 minutes. You know, it's not that the songs weren't good; they just were what they were.
Century Media wouldn't even let Alex release the 4 songs and make the songs 38 minutes long. Like, in other words, if you would have just ended each song with some baloney guitar thing for 10 minutes each time or whatever, that doesn't qualify as an LP. It
has to be 10 tracks in 38 minutes.
8. I think 8 tracks.
8 tracks, okay.
Because if you remember, Jar of Flies had 7 songs on it. It was considered an EP.
That's right, yeah.
I think they pushed out in Chains for one more song, and they were like, no, we don't want to do a full length.
That's funny.
I think
I'm trying to remember now, because we talked to Toby Wright, the guy that produced that record, or I don't know if it was that record or not. Can't remember which one Toby Wright did now, but he was telling me that they pretty much just showed up with no songs and improvised like that whole record, which was like insane. But I mean, that's Alice in Chains. There you go. But like, you know, so I'm not gonna go into the next record too much, because I mean, you weren't there, so you know, and I've got you, and so let's fast forward a little bit, because again, this is archival. The next project I remember you being in was the Solomers record, and if I'm wrong, was there anything that went on after Alathian? Did you do anything in between besides record like some shitty band from St. Louis's record? Like, you can skip that part.
I joined a band called the House Lights.
Okay.
Like a Hey Mercedes Braid meets Weezer Jimmy Eat World ripoff. I always liked that stuff. They used to make fun of me, crutch, because I never listened to enough metal, you know. But I know, whatever. And Tom, back to that My Brother the Woodmaker guy. I actually met I knew the bass player from the House Lights, and he got married in 2000, in New Year's Eve into 2003.
Okay.
So I actually joined the House Light. Remember, I was leaving bands because I was having twins. Well, I had the twins.
I do.
6 months later, I joined another stupid band because I'm an idiot. I actually joined the House Lights 2 weeks before I went and played that last show with Crutch / Alathian in March of 2003. So I was technically in the House Lights and Crutch at the same time for half a month.
Okay.
And
15 days. There it is.
Sure. Right. Write it down. Mark it. And then that went on for, I don't know, 2 years maybe. That started to gain some momentum. That band went to Japan, and I couldn't go because I couldn't get off of work. And still friends with all those guys. And we kind of teetered back and forth. I got out of that band. The band started back up again. We started to play a couple shows, and then my dad got sick, and I had to back out of that, and we haven't really done anything since. So we're all still friends, but we're all old, and we're not going to do anything seriously. Maybe one day Kyle will write an EP and we'll play for it or something like that. But
so it's one of those situations where you're still technically a band, but not really.
I guess, sure. We all got together a couple years ago, got together for 3 or 4 practices, started writing some new stuff. And then Kyle was like, I'm getting busy. Got to go. We'll reschedule practice. Like 8 months went by. And I was like, dude, are we seriously ever going to do this again? And he was like, probably not. And that was that. I don't care. No hard feelings.
Yeah, dude, it was the same with Into Destiny. We got together like 5 years after we recorded that CD, and we wrote like a whole nother album. And like it was like supposed to happen or whatever.
Right.
And it was like way better than the first one. I still have the demos. It's depressing to even listen to it now, but like it was so much more in line with like what we were trying to do, which was like this weird like Hopes Fall like strong arm type of thing. But like we just and like the new material was like so much more that, you know, than the old stuff where we were just trying to do whatever was popular at the time. But yeah, we wrote all those songs, and then our guitar player Patrick was like, he went off and became a youth pastor, and like that was the end of it, you know. But so after that, you know, you were in the band The House Lights, you produced our record, and then, you know, a lot of time went by, and I remember this is something I remember specifically, not just because of the podcast, but because I had my second daughter, who is 4 now, she was still a baby, and she was real sick, and not like hospital sick, but just like not feeling good. And I remember I was holding her a lot, and she was sleeping on me or whatever, and I was like trapped like in my basement, and I had my phone and a pair of earbuds, and she's sleeping and sick or whatever. And I remember tuning into a podcast called As the Story Grows, and you were interviewing Mark Garza of Embodiment. Nice. And I remember because the headline of the episode, the title of the episode, and it said like, our shit really did stink. And I remember like, that sounds like something I want to listen to. So I popped it on, and then a lot of hours went by, and again, so I finished that episode, and I started checking out the other ones and stuff like that. And it's weird too, because when I listened to the Mark Garza one, I was like, it's a podcast, like whatever, you know, like I'm not really listening to the host. I'm not listening to, you know, a whole lot. I'm just there for Mark Garza, Embodiment. I like that band, you know, and the Famine and all that. And then you did there was another episode with Jimmy Brown of Deliverance. So I listened to that one. And then there was the Eric Mendez of Tourniquet. I listened to that one. Jason Sherlock. This is like a long Saturday for me. I listened to all of those episodes like in a row, like, cause I had nothing to do. I had a sleeping baby that was sick, you know, like she needed her rest, you know? So like, I didn't want to like get up and walk around and do a whole lot. And so I listened to all that stuff. And then I was like, why is it that when I'm listening to the host, like I know this dude's voice, like I know this dude, like I just don't know, like not know, like we don't hang out, but like I know who this guy is. And it wasn't until like 2 or 3 days later that I was like, and you were like, my name's Trav. And I was like, how many people named Travis do I know? You know, and I'm going through this list or whatever, and it was like Travis Turner. I was like, well, that guy's the drummer for Alathian. Like he doesn't do podcasts or whatever. And then I started looking into it or whatever. And I remember I sent you an email after that, and I titled the email Travis Turner, like ... or something like that. And because it was at the As the Story Grows email. And I was like, hey man, I've been listening to your podcast, and I don't know if you remember who I am. I was in a band, we recorded, and because I didn't know at the time that like we were basically like the only band you guys ever like recorded.
We only ever recorded 2 things there. You'll never guess what the other thing was.
Becoming the Archetype.
Oh, okay, you did guess.
Yeah, I guess.
It was the demos for what's the one Alex was on?
Physics of Fire.
Yeah, it was the demos for that.
The one that we trashed on the discography discussion episode. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. Very clearly. But what was funny is so I sent you that email and you're like, oh yeah, cool. And then it was probably like 3 or 4 months later, and I might be remembering it wrong because I think this was like roughly like somewhere like mid 2017. And Joe had been kind of pushing me towards like, you should do a podcast. We should do a podcast. We should do whatever. And we were going to do a podcast that was going to be like a fake news podcast, like a satire of current events or whatever. And I was like, I don't really want to do that because I feel like I don't want to like lead people like to wrong information. Like what if somebody takes something we said seriously or something like that? And so I was like, whatever. So we did, he eventually was like, let's just talk about bands, let's do that. And I was like, okay. So we did like 2 episodes. We did one on like Metallica, and then, cause it was all supposed to be 100% secular. Like we weren't going to do like, any of that stuff like with Christian music, but through whatever series of events, we ended up doing the second episode on Mortification and talking about all their records, and we were like super brutally honest about it, and it upset some people, and I still get angry emails about it to this day. But like it's funny. So we did that and all that, and I remember reaching out to you and being like, hey, this is gonna sound super copycat or whatever, but like I'm doing a podcast now too. And but I mean there was an element of that where it was like, well, this dude Travis that I know does a podcast, and he talks to cool people and does this thing. So like maybe we could do it. But then I was like, well, I don't want to do interviews and stuff with people because that's what he does, and I don't want to like encroach on that because I want to talk to the same people and have the same type of conversations. So all that aside, I'm going to put it back in your court. So when As the Story Grows started, it was a different podcast run by a different guy, and it was called Black Vinyl Collective, I believe. And so I guess how did you end up meeting up with that dude and getting kind of on the mic and starting to do like this sort of stuff?
In 2009 is when my cousin asked me to play in Unteachers, and Unteachers was tooling around with Veritas Vinyl, and Jesse, the guy who owned Veritas Vinyl, is the guy who had Black Vinyl Collective. His co-host was supposed to be one of the dudes from, remember that band Crux?
Yeah, I remember Crux. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a dude from Crux, and I guess that guy's never available. I think his name's Greg or Glenn or something. I don't know them very well. And Jesse just asked me, hey, will you be a co-host one day? And I was like, never did one before. Sure. And at the end of that show, he asked me, I don't think the guy he's really never got time. Do you want to co-host the show, like permanently? And I was like, yeah, it was kind of fun. And then I stole the show.
You stole the show? Okay. Yeah, because it was Black Vinyl Collective for a while. Because I remember early episodes, you'd be like, welcome to another episode of the Black Vinyl Collective or whatever. And then it became As the Story Grows. And then it was you and Steven for a while. And so I guess what made, like, I know, like, because I'm very much the same thing. Somebody else was like, you should do this. It would be fun. Let's try it out. And then before you know, you're running all of it, like, and so you did the podcast for, what was it, 2 years, 3 years?
Oh, if you do,
it was a long time.
You do Black Vinyl Collective together all the way up to when I left. It was pushing 4. It's like 176 episodes or something like that.
Okay, because you weren't releasing weekly; they were kind of just whenever they were done.
Well, and to be fair, Brian, who now has As the Story Grows under his regime, he stood in for me as a guest host a couple times when I was just too tuned up with work or just too burned out or whatever. So I say 175, 176. But to be fair,
he did a handful of them.
Out of those, he had his hands in many of them, especially with editing and helping and scheduling. He probably did about 10 of them completely by himself. Where he was like, I can get so-and-so from so-and-so. Do you mind if I talk to him? And I was like, I never even heard that band before. Go ahead. I don't care.
Yeah.
I knew what they were going to talk about, nor did I care. I was like, it's all yours. You can have it for the week. Here's the keys. I'm going to the beach house.
Sure. Well, and what was your, I guess, because there comes a certain point where it's like, okay, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
I'm doing it all the time. And, I can speak to how life consuming it can become. Mm-hmm. And like my wife's sitting upstairs right now reading a book. I'm sure she would rather like be watching like Parks and Recreation or something with me, like something like that. Yep. And but like you had kind of at least in the beginning, kind of a passion for doing this type of content. What led you to want to reach out to the people you reached out to and to try to get, because one thing that I think was really interesting about As the Story Grows and why I liked it more than I liked some of the other podcasts out there is you always wanted to go a little bit deeper, like go in, I don't want to say autobiographical, but like in a way where you wanted to find out why people made the decisions that they made or why they, ended up in the band that they were in or that sort of thing. What gave you the inspiration for doing that? And especially like having the balls to ask people questions that you had asked them over time. What was your inspiration for that? Or was it just something that you just were like, well, I'm here, I'm going to do it?
I feel like, I've said this before on shows too, so I don't mean to repeat myself, but it's, like I said, I haven't done a show in forever, so
it's fine. This one's new, so they can listen to this one and get it here.
Mark Maron was a huge influence. I hate to pick such a huge name, but
I love Mark Maron.
I think he's fantastic. And Mark Maron, at the end of an interview, I feel like I have to go stretch. I have to go outside and do that neck head stretch thing because I'm like, man, he went pretty deep with that guy, or that lady. And I mean, he spoke to the president, for crying out loud. It was amazing. It was. He has such a way of just being like so. I think he's honest. Other people, of course, they'll shit on him and say it's all an act or whatever. Okay, fine, whatever. I bought it as honest. It came across as an earnest conversation with me. So I just thought, well, the problem is Mark Maron's never going to talk to Ben Kohler from Converge.
No.
He's never going to talk to Jason Sherlock from Mortification. I think that dude's rad on the drums. I will. I'll do it. He's never going to talk to Cancer Conspiracy, one of my favorite bands, So he's too busy talking to like Mick Jagger, you know what I mean? Like, so he can have hundreds and thousands of downloads the first day. I'd rather talk to this ding dong on an EP that I liked 10 years ago, and maybe I'll get 30 people to listen. That would be cool. So I guess Mark Maron was one of my, I would say the one I would get to the end of one of his episodes and be like, I want to do that. That's what I'm aiming for. Yeah. But I wanted to do it with our little smaller niche of music,
Our scene, like stuff that guys like me would be like, oh man, I always wanted to hear from that dude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think I ever told anybody this before. I always tried, I kept asking myself, do I want to be friends with this person? Like the whole time I'm talking to him, I could tell, but sometimes, Dan, I would get these kinds of answers, Dan, where they would, I could almost tell they were like looking at their lap and reading their responses and everything because,
dude,
some band got handed to me from some label and it was the most plastic conversation I had. And I was kind of like, all right, whatever. And that's what it is. And that's what it is. And also at the end of 4 years worth of podcasting, I also have people in my phone that like, they are legitimately my friends and I talk to them. I'm talking to one right now. And I think I put so much of myself out there that I kind of ate up all my bandwidth and was like, okay, that's enough. Like this scene has become all encompassing. And I'm like, I have 58 threads going on my phone from different conversations with people. People want to email me about the show and everything. And it just became like the only way for me to get out of this is to scale it back, shrink it down and keep it small, or let it take over. And I need to like get somebody else involved. And then they're doing all the editing, they're doing all the scheduling, and then I'm the talent that just plops down and goes, "Hi, I'm my chapter story." Okay, bye, and let somebody else handle it. And that sounded a little cookie cutter and fake to me. Not fake. I get it. Big business has to have machinery rather than hands. I get that, but
Totally.
it just turned into a thing where I just felt like this is too big for me to handle. I don't want to do it anymore. I totally 100% prime candidate for burnout.
So you answered my next question, which was like, so what happened? Because you were talking to people that you had grown up listening to, and like I could relate, like all these years later, where it's like, I've got people on my phone that I just never imagined that I would have in my phone, and we just share like memes with each other, like like just stupid crap, like stuff that doesn't even like translate back to the 1 hour that we did an episode together or whatever it is. Like it goes beyond that, and it's been hard, even for me to deal with that a little bit. And so I was always curious, because dude, I was seriously bummed out when I remember like my iTunes refreshed one day and there was an episode of As the Story Grows, and I was like, oh sweet, and then it was all like, hand it down and walk away. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what is that? Like, I appreciate the SEO reference, but like, it's one of those like, you like what? Cause I remember like, there was a time where you were doing, like you did an extended interview with Kurt Bachman of Believer. And like, I remember sitting there, cause like, I mean, we were doing our podcast at the time, and we were doing our own thing, over in our own corner or whatever. And I remember like, oh my God, like Travis is over there talking to Kurt Bachman, and that Chris Poland interview that you did, just, I mean, I've gone back and listened to that.
It's years off my life. That interview screwed up a vacation for me. That you hit the nail on the head. That's the interview that took me down. That's the interview that took me down. I'm going to talk to Chris Poland from Megadeth. This is amazing. I can't believe it. He's one of my guitar heroes, blah, 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 blah. That thing was so hard to push out. And by the time I did it, there was one thing in there that his management missed and didn't want out there. And Chris Poland himself called me on my cell phone and asked me to pull the interview down because he's going to get sued by Megadeth. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. Yeah, long story short, Josh Toomey, God bless him. You're never going to meet a nicer dude than Josh Toomey. Toomey tried helping me by pushing out the Chris Poland thing, and he got it to Lambgoat or something. And when you click on the link for Lambgoat, you're listening to the episode that they uploaded. You're not streaming it from my site.
Right.
Got it?
Oh, trust me, I know how all that shit works. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm explaining it to the people that don't know. So Toomey pushed out, OMG, my buddy Trav talked to Chris Poland from Megadeth. The episode version that got pushed out on Lambgoat was the one that Chris Poland called me for and said, you need to pull that, or I'm going to lose my house. Those were his words. Now it's on Lambgoat. I had to contact Lambgoat and ask him to pull down my episode. So Lambgoat basically shot back a little bit of like, you cocky mother, kind of an attitude. And I couldn't confess as to why I was doing it, but I basically just told him like, can you please pull down my podcast? I didn't
pull down the article. Yeah.
I want that to be put out there. I was afraid to say I can't have it out there because there's something controversial in it. 20,000 more people would listen then. So,
yeah, they would print another article saying that, because I had a very similar situation where I had Scott from Zayo on, and we were talking about Tim Lambesis of Vesely Dying, and Scott happened to say, he goes, does Tim Lambesis deserve to be in a band? And he goes, no, he doesn't deserve to be in a band.
I remember that.
And I put that episode out. And that was on my other podcast, Brutally Speaking, but like, it got picked up by everybody.
Sure.
like it was one of those like, dude, I've been over here in my corner doing my thing. Like it has, I had so much not to do with that. And I remember sending Scott a text after that being like, dude, I'm so sorry this is blowing up the way that it was blowing up. Like I had nothing to do with it. Like it just, I did the interview and we had a nice conversation about like collecting.
Did he care?
He didn't care at all, dude.
I can't picture him caring.
His response was, dude, this is the most press the band's gotten in 10 years, like, and I was like, well, cool. I'm glad I did something good for Zayo, but like, it was definitely one of those, like, but yeah, like, I feel you. And like, for you, it was 10 times that,
Dude,
because.
Okay, so I was dealing with management, which I don't like doing. I don't like talking to somebody to talk to somebody. That just feels weird and plastic to me, but I get it. So I'm going through management. I rent a house with my friends, Tom, the woodmaker guy. I rent a house with my friends once a year. We haven't done it for a year because whatever, but we rent a house in the middle of the state because one of our buddies lives in Pittsburgh. We all get together, we rent a house, we bring recording equipment, and we just record a song just for fun. It's just for us. We never put it out there. I was completely ruined for that weekend because I was checking my phone every 10 minutes because I'm waiting to get the final cut. Brian is editing it for me, and he's hitting me with like, Trav, where's the list? So like I'm like waiting for management to get back in touch with me. West Coast, 3 hours difference, and I said to him 100 times, like, yo, I'm EST. Can you help me out? And they were like, they finally hit me back at like 9:40 at night with like this laundry list of 13 things that had to get cut. I'm supposed to put it out Sunday morning. Here on Saturday night, I'm like, Brian, I'm so sorry. And he's like, it's cool. I'll just stay up and do it. He stayed up till like something stupid in the morning, pushed it out there and everything. And then the next day was the Super Bowl. During the Super Bowl, Chris Poland called me, told me I had to pull down. Like, now the Super Bowl got ruined. I was just like, fuck this podcast. This is stupid. I just wanted to talk to Megadeth, And it just turned into that took the wind out of me. It really, I just felt like, is this what it takes to get to talk to bigger guests? I don't want to do this anymore. And that coupled with another thing that pissed me off, I'm just being honest with you now.
Dude, it's fine. That's what we're here for. Like, honesty.
I'm buddies with Jason Wisdom. I love the man. I've recorded an album with him. I've been involved with Becoming the Archetype since blah, 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 blah. I got nothing against the guy.
I love Jason Wisdom. Yeah.
Who doesn't? Sweetest dude ever. I did a Braid anniversary episode where I got all 4 members of Braid, Jay Robbins from Jawbox. That was not an easy get, by the way. I got the president of Polygram, what do they call it? Polygram Records?
Polygram, I believe. Yeah.
Whatever. And their roadie who works at a record store near my house. I got all 7 of those people under one roof, edited the shit out of that thing, pushed it out there. And the first week I had like 800 listens.
Yeah, and dude, that's awesome.
800 listens. Well, then Jason Wisdom came on for the 3rd time to talk about death therapy, and I got 1,400 listens the first week. And I was like, I don't. How much harder am I supposed to work?
Yeah.
That Braid episode took me like 2 months to put together. Jason, him and I just shit one out one day where it was like, oh, a new death therapy album. Let's go through track by track and do it. It's almost twice as many listens. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
We did a Living Sacrifice discography discussion with Jason Wisdom, and there's only like 45 minutes of audio of Jason and us talking. And that episode just like out of nowhere. And I was like, dude, because the first hour and a half of that episode is just me and Joe and Jeff doing what we do. Right. And then all of a sudden, we have Jason Wisdom on for the last 40 minutes of the podcast, and it just goes through the roof.
Right.
And yeah, so like I'm only saying that so that I understand where you're coming from on that.
Started feeling lopsided, and it started feeling like if I have to put 2 months into something that I'm super proud of, and it only gets half the results of something that I don't even try to do, then maybe I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm tired. I'm burned out. And like you just alluded to something too. You're downstairs doing a podcast while your wife is upstairs reading the book.
Agreed.
I was downstairs. I couldn't get a podcast done in under, let's say, average 7 to 9 hours a week. There's another working day. I'm already working. I was a pest control guy at the time. I'm already working in the service industry, stupid amounts of hours. And then I'm coming home and putting an additional day worth of labor not into my family. Quite frankly, my marriage started to suffer. It really did turn into a daddy has to go downstairs and do his thing. And I could just tell there was like disdain in her voice. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, all right. Writing was on the wall, dude. I'm not dumb. I mean, I might have to walk past the wall a couple times before I catch it. But it just felt like I better do this before I pick up something I can't put down. You know what I mean? So Time to go. Dude, I don't miss it at all. You and I just fumbled around with Skype for 15 minutes trying to get on. Man, I did that 150 times. I wanted to throw my laptop through the goddamn wall. I was so sick and tired of doing this.
You're like, oh man, that old feeling in my heart starting to flare up again. Yeah.
And then I would get the guest on, and they're like eating, and I'm like, I know I'm not a big podcast. I know I'm not Mark Maron, but could you finish your granola bar before you called in?
Dude, that episode you did with Eric Mendez of Tourniquet, where he was like, he was sitting there with his guitar in his lap, and he's like, just, you know, and you even said, like, and it was the most tactful thing I'd ever heard in my life, where you're like, hey man, are you going to do that through the whole interview? I mean, it's fine, but if you're doing it, I just want to know.
And then refresh my memory. Did he stop or did he just keep doing it?
He kept doing it, dude. Because that was, you said that in part 1, like 15 minutes in, right. And then that was the whole 2-part episode, because I think it was like a 4-hour podcast at the end of it.
See what I edited out of that one? He was like, he would start running something. He would go, yeah, that song, blah, 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 blah. He'd see a song title, and then he'd start playing it on the guitar, and he'd go, wait, how'd that go?
Yep.
And there I sit, head in hand, just like, guess I'll just wait for you to.
Well, he was like clearly high as a kite through that whole thing. Dude, yeah, like I love the dude. I'm friends with him on Facebook. Like, I love the dude 100%.
I hope I meet him one day. I owe him a big hug. But yeah, he admitted to me he was up there that for the interview, and I kind of was like, well, okay, let's see where this goes. This will be fun. But I wanted to rub him a little bit. I just kind of wanted to nudge him towards the Ted Kirkpatrick conversation. And dude, I couldn't stop him after that. He was just like, he went off on it.
Well, yeah, I had Luke Easter a couple of weeks ago, and you know, he was not high as a kite. He was sober as a priest on Sunday, you know. But like, it was, but yeah, like and it's funny too, because after we got off the phone, I was messaging him afterwards, and I was like, you need to listen to this Eric Mendez interview, you know, and so I linked him to it or whatever, and that actually inspired him to he reached out to Brian and did an episode of As the Story Grows as well.
Awesome.
Which I won't get into that, whereas like me and Brian had the same guest like a week apart of each other, but like, you know, it was one of those things. It was cool. It was cool getting to hear Luke's side of the story on all that stuff.
Like, man, if you go line up me and Toomey at the time, I bet I talked to Gene Hoglan within 2 weeks of when he did. So he forked me. He handed me a guest that I was a little verklempt to talk to him. He's a drumming hero, so. Yeah, that's how this works. We're all supposed to help each other. It's fine. Whatever.
I can't count on enough fingers how many times Toomey has come through, you know, for us on stuff like that. Like, he's just randomly, like, he'll just sit, dude, the dude is so savant. Like, he'll just send you a message like, hey, so-and-so from so-and-so is looking to do interviews. You guys want in? You know? And it's like, yeah, dude, you know, like, why do you even have to ask me that question? Like, absolutely. Like, we'll do it, you know? And, you know, and he still does that. He still does that.
Football related.
Yeah.
He's a Titans fan and I'm a Niners fan. And when the Titans got into the playoffs this year, I think we started like, hey, congratulations. Good to hear from you. When the Niners lost the Super Bowl, that's when I heard from a bunch of friends. Because that night I was getting a bunch of like, ha, eat shit. And I'm like, I deserve that. I've been talking a lot of trash this year. Now I got to eat my sandwich, you know what I mean? But yeah, Toomey's a Titans fan. Him and I, we talk ball once in a while. He's a good dude. I like that guy.
Yeah, no, we love him. He's a huge friend of the show for sure. Like I remember too, because the first time we had him on the show, I think I went through you to like get a hold of him or something like that. Like I can't remember. It was such a long time ago, but like I remember like sending him a message and being like, "Hey, our podcast gets like 10 listens a week. You want to check us out? You know, like and he's like, yeah, dude, I'll come on and do an episode or whatever." And like it was cool. We talked about all kinds of 90s stuff. You know, it was great. And we actually just recently had him on. We did. Okay, so you may remember this. I remember contacting you about. I was like, we're going to do this Pantera episode, and I don't like Pantera, and Pantera is Toomey's favorite band, and we're going to trash Pantera on the episode, like all this stuff or whatever, and like it was a huge mistake. But within 3 years, I remember like looking at where the podcast was then and looking at where it's at now. And I remember being like, we need to like give Pantera like a real episode. Like, something that really, and so we had him back on for that, and it was cool because things were a little weird for us after we brought him on the podcast and told him that his favorite band sucks and all that stuff. And
yeah, you set yourself up to fail.
Yeah. Great dude. But so you got burned out. You left. You handed it down and walked away. You gave it to Brian, and Brian's been running it ever since. And at the time, the only information we had was that you were playing in a cover band, and that was all you kind of had divulged. Because, dude, you could tell, like, listening to that episode, you were like, I am done with this. I can't wait to sign off for the last time. And it just be like I'm going to go out and live my life now.
Yeah. That's pretty much still how I feel about it. The thought of the thought of hosting a podcast. I don't mind being on your show. This is an honor. I actually asked me. The thought of running one, oh God, makes me itchy. I'm done. I'm burnt out. Burnout's a legitimate thing, man. It's a real thing.
I hear you. I mean, you're talking about being itchy. I'm like 24/7 covered in fire ants. Like, I get it. Like, it's rough. But I want to say this on the podcast, as cheesy as it is and as dumb as it is, but like, what you did was very inspirational, especially for guys like me, guys on other podcasts that maybe don't have a chance to speak on this episode. But like, you did a lot as far as one of the things that I latched onto a lot was the interview style and the conversational aspect of an interview, instead of it being like, I'm going to show up here with my mead composition book, and I've got 12 questions written down that I'm going to ask you. Dude, do you think I prepared for this interview tonight? I did not.
It's so dumb.
At all.
Every time you go online and look at, like, if you look at like Loudwire's top 10 times that a musician absolutely embarrassed the interviewer or something dumb or whatever. I'm not doing a good job.
I love watching that stuff, though.
It's always a shitty interview. They never do it to a person that's legitimate. They're always like overseas, and the person was like, so what was it like to be on tour with Ozzy? And they're like, great. Like,
Ozzy, we went on and played some songs, and then Ozzy went on after us and played some songs.
What's it like to walk out on stage in front of 50,000 people? Nice. What was it like to record at God City? Great. They know what they're doing. Like, what the hell? We know you enjoyed recording there. If you had a bad experience, I'm sure you'd want to talk about it. But I'd rather know, what was it like growing up with your sister with special needs or something like that. I think it's a more interesting story. And don't you connect with the person a little bit more when you know something personal about them, rather than the same superficial bullshit that the past 8 podcasts have asked them? That was my goal, just to get around that.
Yeah, and that's the rough part, because a lot of the times some of the people that you're talking to are on a album cycle, and so they're not necessarily ready for the types of questions that you're going to throw at them.
Right.
Because they're expecting, like, so the record came out, and it came out, and people listened to it, and were you surprised by how many people listened to it, or whatever? Yeah, and so it
work.
Yeah. Absolutely. But it was inspirational. It was cool. And it's the reason I podcast, just hearing that Mark Garza interview, and I was like, there was a certain spark of like, I could do that, that sort of thing. And
I inspired, because what have I been saying? I was a dude who went on eBay and bought a microphone and just started doing it.
Total dude. I mean, look at this thing. It's gross. Exactly. It's great. It's got like dust on but anyway, but yeah, and so so you left the podcast, and I can only imagine. I know you sounded like, because like, if I were to leave the podcast tomorrow, like, I would have nothing but regrets. But I think in your case, with the amount of burnout that you were experiencing, you leave the podcast, you're playing in a cover band. What was there anything other than the Satire stuff, which we covered in the first part of the podcast? What else were you doing, or was it just enjoying life, like being a dude, being Travis the dude instead of Travis the podcast host?
Being Travis the dude, I was I didn't winterize my hose and flooded my basement.
I remember that. Yeah, okay.
My recording studio, because I'm a dipshit. So I couldn't have recorded for someone if I wanted to for about 8 or 9 months, because I was too busy rebuilding my basement, which I'm sitting in now, which is totally different. The studio is gone.
I'm jealous. Your basement's way bigger than mine is.
My basement is dope. I love it down here. But I had this entire section walled off to be like an actual recording studio with a ceiling inside of a ceiling. The whole room that doesn't touch the room, lost it all, lost the whole thing, and really got like butthurt about it, and was kind of like, you know what, screw this. I want a normal basement for my kids, because my kids always had like what was left of the basement when I wasn't occupying it as a studio area. So I redid the whole thing with the whole sectional couch and the TV on the wall and the video game setup and everything. And we turned this into like a secondary family room. My record collection is down here and everything. And then it also kind of morphs over into this weird drum area that I can partition off and record. And I'm finally back up and running. So I went through a phase of like, well, can't record anyway. So the only thing I could do was play live. I had to cart my drums out of the house and go earn gas money because I ain't recording nothing. I got lucky. I didn't lose any equipment. I just lost house. Nothing got wet. I didn't like lose electrical equipment or drums or anything. But
were you able to pull any homeowners insurance stuff on that, or?
Oh yeah. Oh, it was
asking for a friend.
No, yeah. I don't advise flooding your basement, but yeah, I learned all about deductibles and all that, and it wound up costing about $6,000. My deductible was $1,000, so it was going to be $1,000 out of my pocket, and the other $5,000 was covered. And that's when I came up with the idea of like, well, how much more would it be if we changed this and changed this? I don't want you to restore it. I want you to rip this out. And it basically costs like an additional $1,500. So I flooded my basement and then paid $2,500 to get it to where I wanted it, and I'm finally back up and running now.
That's great. That's awesome. So if I have another album in the tank, then I can call you up and be like, hey, can we? I think Joe would be super offended by that. He's like, dude, we have a studio. What are you doing? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but it's gonna be old school. We're gonna drive out to Pennsylvania. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna drive 18 hours overnight. It's gonna be incredible. Yeah.
You have a better place to sleep than that weirdo's apartment. You can sleep in my basement.
That was creepy. I will not. So I'm just going to say this because, I want to pull this dude out of hiding. Dude, so do you remember the first day we recorded? And you probably don't. I think you were at work. The other guy, Sean was there.
You guys used my studio.
You made token appearances. I mean, you were there. But you usually in the evenings. Like, why are these guys still here? It's 5:00. Like, what are they doing? And the reality is we just weren't ready to record a record. But
right.
Nobody
is at that age, man. Don't bust your own chops. Nobody's on point when they're.
I remember. I'm 34.
How old were you?
Oh, Jesus. You make me do math. Okay.
13 years ago? You were
13
20?
years ago, so it's like 20. Yeah, something like that. Well, it's funny because when we drove out there, it was 18 and a half hours, and I drove the entire time because it was my brother's car. I borrowed my brother's car, and he was like, yeah, you can drive my car, but if literally anything's wrong with it when you get back, I'm going to murder you,
Sure.
So there's that. And so I drove the entire time. I didn't let any of the other guys drive the car. And so like whenever I got there the first day, because I remember you and Sean came over to that dude's house, and everybody was like laughing and joking, and you guys were all talking and whatever. And I remember like I looked like death, like incarnate. Like I had giant bags under my eyes, and like I was like, yeah, it's cool. Does this dude have a working shower? Like, it was rough. And
can we sleep now?
Yeah, can we sleep now? And then we like tried to get you guys to accept the flying car and all that. And that was all. I'll tell you about that later. But like,
I don't remember that.
But Travis, thank you so much, man, for taking the time out to have a conversation. And I think your cousin Steven beat you by about 30 minutes. I know the interview I did with him lasted forever.
Okay, that's fine.
But
there's no one to shut up anyway. So.
Yeah, well, he's a man, dude. Him and I have become like best friends, like over the past year and 2 years, really.
Yeah.
But
he's a good dude.
Yeah, absolutely is. But I appreciate it, man. I'm looking forward to the Satire record for sure. I never get tired of hearing you play the drums, and I think that's going to be a really good application for it. Me being so into like techie metal stuff, mathy stuff, or whatever. I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to really scratch that itch for me personally.
And it's techie and mathy, but it isn't tech metal. It's way more tech, like technical hardcore kind of stuff. I think you'll like it.
I'm stoked. Well, man, I really appreciate it, and I'll catch up with you in the future. I don't think you and I have ever really technically stopped talking. So, it's cool.
There's long pauses. It's fine.
It happens, but I appreciate it, man, and we're looking forward to that record coming out, and maybe even pull you on again after it comes out, and we'll talk about it and break it down and go song by song. I'd love to get Brian Gray on to do that as well. I know he's podcast silent for the time being, but hopefully that doesn't last forever.
I can do a Brian Gray impression if you need me to. I can pretend to be him.
Dude, I felt so bad. He sent me a message. He recorded like 30 seconds of him talking, and I was like, dude, I get it.
Yeah.
He's
not
100%. He's not just blowing me off. It's not like that.
When he says he can't sing and he can't scream and he can't talk, he's not faking. The poor guy blew his throat out, and I'm only making fun of him because I consider him a dear friend and I love him, and that means I like you when I make fun of you. So.
Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, now that we bring that up, so on Mother's Day, there was a cover song posted on Facebook, and you did lead vocals, and it was a Stretch Armstrong song. Tell me about that. Why'd you guys decide to do that? That was absolutely made my day. That was like what got me to be like, yeah, I can go tear some roots out in the backyard.
That's funny. It's funny when you texted me. And you were like, dude, that was a great cover. And I was like, oh, it's out? Dude, I'm not on social media.
Yeah, you're
Brian
a ghost.
sent me a copy. He sent me a copy in my phone, but it wasn't a link. It was just the actual video. So I thought it was still in the, what do you think? Should we change anything phase? Next thing I know, you were like, dude, this is great. I was like, oh, I guess it's live. I seriously was like, I watched it once and was like, okay, cool. That's happening now. Went outside and worked on my yard until dinner time.
Dude, the Stretch Armstrong old school vocals, you nailed it.
You
nailed it. 100%.
When I scream, it doesn't come out with that nice throaty Bruce from Living Sacrifice growl. It doesn't have the Jason Wisdom. I have that higher screechy snapcase thing going, I guess. And Brian, I guess the Blamed are kind of not officially having a vocalist. They're kind of handing it around and everything. And I guess
even the new record had a whole bunch of different people doing vocals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a real problem now that Brian kind of wrecked his voice. So he was like, I'm thinking about getting this person, He was telling me about which songs to do. And I said, I call Stretch Armstrong, totally joking around, because I thought it would be fun to do the 1, 2, 3, go. And that'd be the end of it.
Right.
And he was like, well, you got to do the thank yous. You got to do I was like, oh yeah, there are more vocals in that than
it's got to be the real deal. Yeah.
Well, granted. Oh yeah, there's all that too. So I was like, I'll just do the whole song. Just pick what you want. And he liked it. So yeah. So I just screamed my ass off and they kept it. Now I'm on a cover album with the Blamed, with Jim on drums, Rocky Gray. I didn't even know Rocky Gray was the guitarist in that song until
How cool is that?
I know. I'm in a song with Rocky now. How cool is that? Love that dude. So yeah, what an honor, man. I really feel like they kind of knocked it out of the park for vocals on that EP, and then got me involved. They have I don't know who the lady is who sang the Scattered Few song, but she nailed it. It sounds so good. And Wisdom can't do wrong vocally. I think he's got one of the better metal voices ever.
Yeah, he's one of the best.
Yeah, and then me, my dumb ass, took one take. Brian was like, your mic's out of phase. Are you standing too close? I was like, yeah, I'm standing. I didn't even pull my curtain over. He's like, do it again. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm an idiot. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was totally for fun. I did not think it was going to be as serious as it got, and now that happened. So
that's awesome.
Well, I'm sure that moved tens and thousands of units, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end it right there, and I'm going to turn off the recorder as of now.